Beyond the Veil with Daniel Jackson presents guest host Victoria Andersen. Victoria is an author and course creator. In addition to publishing several books, she hosts the Leap Into Your Story podcast for writers. Leap Into My Story, Part 1.
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Veil with Daniel Jackson. I'm your host, Daniel Jackson, me. And today we have Victoria Andersen on the show. Hi, Victoria. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's always a pleasure talking to you. You know that. We always usually end up talking for like an hour before, an hour and after.
Yes.
All that stuff, we should just put it into the interview, but it's usually about other stuff than we're talking about. Not everything we want to talk about in an interview, but
Yeah.
today we're here to discuss you and your experiences with spirit. And because you've written 3 books, and I'm sure are you writing something else new?
Always. Always. Yes, I have my 4th book. Actually, I have 2 books. One is another kind of memoir one, again, about supernatural experiences. And one's actually going to be my first fiction book, which again will be based on some of my real life paranormal experiences as well.
Man, that's a lot of writing. How do you find time to do all that writing?
Well, I'm just a very obsessive compulsive person.
No way.
Yeah. And if multitasking were a gold medal or like an Olympic sport, I'd be a gold medalist, multi-gold medalist in that. So, I'm very big on mindset. And when I set my mind to something, it will be done. So,
and what does your husband do? Does he just stand out of the way?
Pretty much. I mean, he has a job that keeps him busy, and really the cat's my biggest challenge too. My biggest obstacle.
Yeah, we've talked before, and I've seen the cats show up in the point of view of the camera, and I'm like, and you're like, oh, and I'm like, well, who cares, man? It's life, that's the way it is.
Yep. So yeah, she's runs the roost, and when I try to set myself down to write, sure enough, she'll come and sit on the keyboard or put a nice long 3-sentence all through my manuscript. So yes.
Maybe that's we don't know. Maybe it's purpose. Maybe it's not. Maybe she's doing it on purpose to get your attention.
Yeah, I think she's doing that on purpose. They're like that. So
they are like that. I know that. Well, I have 9 of them. Had 10.
I know.
Had 9 of them, and yeah, they are absolutely like that. They just want to try to get your attention all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had one that if I were on speakerphone, she knew if she would knock the receiver off, it would interrupt the conversation.
Oh, smart. Yeah.
Yes. She figured out pretty quick.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good for the cat, not
Yes.
so good for you, but good for the cat.
Exactly. They're too darn smart, I say.
They are too darn smart sometimes. Yeah, I had a cat last night that looked at me and went over to the food bowl, then came back and looked at me, then went over to the food bowl and came back, and I was like, is it empty? And I walked over and said, oh, it is empty. And then she just kind of went under the bed and waited for me to come back with some food. So I was okay.
Yep. See, she's got you trained.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, just like my wife. They all have me trained. Yeah. I'm okay with it. Yeah, you would think I would think ahead of time and know this stuff, but no, I don't pay attention to it. No, not at all. So tell us about your books and tell us, I know you have a lot of instances with the supernatural. So why did you feel that you needed to write that down and put that in a book format?
That's it's kind of there's many roads that had kind of led me down that. There was an uptick in these paranormal, supernatural, spirit events that I just felt like I needed to journal them. So it all started with a journal. Sure. Now, I hadn't planned to turn them into books, but I seemed to get confirmation like everywhere I turned that I needed to put them into book form.
Yeah, they were telling
But
you to do it.
so I would be having a conversation with, say, a coworker in line at, during my lunch hour, and there would be somebody in that line going, "Oh my gosh, didn't mean to overhear, but that's great. You should put it in a book." Or I'm talking to somebody about something strange that happened in the morning at the, I'm in line at the grocery store talking to my friend, and again, like the cashier would be like, "Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Do you have any more stories?" And put it in a book. So it almost seemed like everywhere I turn, I was getting this confirmation that I needed to put a book out there. And, I wasn't interested in being a bestseller. I think my main goal was to, maybe somebody needed to hear some of what I experienced,
Sure.
because when you have these paranormal experiences, you have a lot of established beliefs that put you in a kind of a conflicting spiritual, mental, emotional state. Maybe it's your imagination, or you're making it up because you need attention, or if you have religious beliefs, well, you're tapped into the devil. So you have a lot of these negative, pretty predominant belief systems that put a lot of pressure on you to just not talk about it.
Sure. Or you when they happen, you have that moment where you're shaking your head going, did I just
Yeah,
say
yeah, exactly. And a lot of times you question your own sanity
yes?
because it's so way out there. I mean, that was one of my big struggles is, and of course, these were happening pre-internet, but, I would go to lectures and seminars and support groups. And one of the things that I came at them just out of those is I still felt very alienated because my experiences were so unique that even people in that mindset who would be open to hear it were just like, they couldn't relate.
They look at you like this. What?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is the standard look.
What happened?
Yes,
What?
that is.
Oh.
Really? You
Oh.
weren't imagining it? No, wasn't
No,
imagining that.
no.
And matter of fact, if that was imagining, it was pretty good because it happened a couple more times, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Why would it? But why do you think it would keep happening over and over and over again? Right.
Right. And generally there's, some sort of message that you need to pay attention into, whether, and it's usually, for supernatural, a lot of times it's personal,
Yes.
what I found out. So one of the reasons why I realized that other people couldn't, share or get connected into what I was talking about, because it was left for me to decipher
Right.
a message that nobody else would, because it's all based on my life
Right.
and my path. So when I realized, I just stopped searching for validation, I guess.
Sure. Sure.
That's when I got a little more serious about writing the book, because I says, okay, I'm just going to write it to put it out there. It has family history. It just has some of the just personal insights and struggles with family. Because a lot of times with drama, family drama, you shut down. So that's another thing that I wanted to bring out in my books is, when you, of course, in my first book, I talk about how I shut down my abilities, which did not work out so good.
No, I'm sure it wouldn't.
Yeah, it did not work out so good. So really the first book and the second and third book is talking about me trying to recharge it,
Right.
because I needed it. That was a guiding system. And as crazy as it made me feel, that was really a big part of me that I shouldn't have wanted to abandon.
Why do you think you wanted to abandon it? Did you just, was it because of the fear of what was going on?
Well, it was just after the Northridge earthquake. And of course, that's one of the common threads. A lot of times with certain abilities, they get triggered after a trauma. So for me, living through a really big, scary earthquake with the building almost falling on me.
Sure.
Now it was kind of built, so that was like the flip switch to be stuck on and high level. But the few years before that, it was starting to build. Something had triggered, and I think it was maybe my mom dealing with my mom's, pending mortality.
Right.
So it's kind of started right when she was diagnosed with breast cancer in 92, and then 93, she was again for the other breast. And I think this was the first time where death really hit kind of close to home, or the possibility of death. And by 1994, the earthquake was just it was a smoldering little fuse, and then bam. And then it got stuck on the on switch. And from then on, I lost all control of my own thoughts. I couldn't sleep. I was getting, I had went from a little bit of clairvoyant, a little clairsentient, clairaudio, to all three of them at once, all the time. So I was seeing images, hearing images, feeling things, all hitting all my sensory all the time, 24/7, 365 days a year. There was no rest. And I think what happened is the fatigue I couldn't, it was just breaking me down. I couldn't function. I couldn't have a job. I couldn't have relationships. I didn't want to even be around people because I didn't want all their information coming at me all the time. So I was, I'd sneak out in the middle of the night to, in a 24-hour burger place or, grocery store, and just zoom in, get, mainly cat food. It's all about the kitties, no matter what.
That's it.
And a little snack for me, and just try to keep myself away from people.
Yeah.
And, bills had to be paid. People were starting to question what's wrong with me. I didn't want to talk about it because it was pointless. They didn't understand what I was going through.
Yeah, they don't know. People don't understand, and what they don't understand, they are afraid of.
Correct. And that was the other element too. Now, I've had other family members that had psychic ability as well, but nothing like I had experienced at all. So that was just, a level that and again, there was no internet. You didn't have the luxury of searching something, going, okay, there's other people out there. So you feel very alienated. And I remember one time I did finally reach one of my neighbors who was very big into, new age stuff. And she dragged me out to I guess it was a talk with a Lakota chief. And he only came out like once every 15 years. So this was his, I think was his second time out in public where he speaks at this lecture. And she dragged me to it because she was concerned. And I was trying to hide because there was about 20 people in the circle. And I was trying to hide. And again, just pushing myself out from the spotlight and being around people. Would you know that Lakota chief and when he said he not only does he not come out on but 15 years, doesn't normally speak. He picked me out of that 25-person room and wanted to speak to me. And it's like, that was the first time that I realized I can hide. I could try to hide. I could run, but I can't hide because he honed into it. And he just said this. He pointed to me in this group of people and says, she's the one. I have no idea what that is, but apparently the rest of the people in the room, and that was some sort of selected position in the prophetic area. Now, my friend was hoping that was her, by the way. She wasn't too happy about me being picked.
Yeah, it's
However,
like when you win
you
a
know,
contest and your friend didn't win, and they look at you like, "Oh, damn it! Yeah, why is it
yes, I know.
always them and not me?" Yeah.
But, I mean, that's still, even with that, I'm like, I didn't want that responsibility, even with the validation from the Lakota chief. Going, you're the one, because she had explained to me in the car what the circle was about. This Lakota chief would come out every 15 years and pick out the seers or the prophets
Right.
that carry the responsibility to, keep the prophetic visions, and I don't want it. So
Well, I can understand that, and not everybody does, because that's a lot to take on.
yes, and I was, here I was 21, and that was a lot of responsibility for
Life change.
somebody young. I just wanted to go to class, get, hang out with my friends.
Right. You still wanted to be 21.
Yeah, I want to be 21. I didn't want to be the responsibility of the prophetic keeper, of the universe, one of the chosen people of,
Right. Yeah, I once in a while I come across people who have these abilities as well, and they bring them to me, and then I will go have a talk with them. And yeah, I talked with a girl one time, and all she wanted to do was just be 25, and I was like, well,
yeah,
that's what you want to do. That's up to you.
yeah,
But,
exactly.
they don't get this stuff away lightly. But okay,
No,
yeah,
no. But I mean, you go back to that alienation, and why me?
right.
Why me? Well, I don't feel any special.
Yeah,
The abilities are helpful. They keep you safe. They navigate you to to benefits quicker than, say, the average person who doesn't have them. But there is a great responsibility.
yeah,
And at that level, I just didn't understand what my role is to,
yeah,
carry on all.
yeah.
Because I mean, here's the thing about it. They weren't really positive images. It would be great if I had more positive images. One of the things I talk about in my book Touched is that I foretold my mother's death, and I had started to see the images a couple years before she died, and at the months leading up to her death, they started getting more and more intense. And I mean, there wasn't, very seldom you get positive things, at least in my experience.
Do you think-
Sometimes,
do you
and I don't know if that's for warning
Right.
people or preparing people.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Do you think that they were doing that just to prepare you to see how much you would be capable of being okay with it? Or is it always so much that they are just trying to prepare you, just to see how far you will go with it?
Maybe, because I can tell you all the premonitions, whether they be big scale, like the Northridge, because I actually I didn't know what the Northridge earthquake. I knew that there were sensations in my body that were not normal, that were happening like the day before, like intense cold. I mean, it was, even though it was winter time, it was actually fairly warm at 80 degrees.
Wow.
But I felt like I was in 8 degrees.
Right.
And the intense sleepiness. And then there was one point that I describe in my book, being squeezed into a little tiny box. I mean, I felt all this pressure just from all ends, just squeezing me, almost suffocating me. And I don't know if that was just the energy of the fault line, or, that's just how my body was responding to the messages, because I didn't get any, visuals on that. I just had this feeling, and then all these weird sensations And that was the first time that I had experienced that. So that was something new.
Yeah, I'm getting that it is because of the just feeling it and your body responding to it, but they wanted to see if you could get used to that.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you, that was the first time my body was like part of the sensory system. Usually, there's visions or feelings or the audio. I'll hear somebody tell me something. This time my body was like the barometric pressure to something coming. And ever since then, I've tried to pay attention. I mean, those were really intense feelings. They were hard to miss. But sometimes if I notice that if I get a drop in my cold, like a cold, and it's not cold, that's alerts me to something.
Yeah.
Or I'm not sleepy, and all of a sudden, boom, I can't even keep my eyes open, and I feel like I'm going to fall out of my chair. So those are signs that kind of trigger me to start looking, to go, I don't see anything, feel anything, I'm obvious, but it stops me, it hits my radar, and then I start looking for what should I be paying attention to.
And I'm sure you're going to agree with this, but do you believe that they did that on purpose so that you would pick up on those triggers?
I think so. Well, I'll tell you, a couple hours before the actual earthquake hit, I turned off my heater because, I had been so cold, but now it was blasting. And I think that probably helped save me, or at least put me at a less danger, because a lot of like gas lines broke.
Yeah.
In my well, not my apartment, but across the street or across the courtyard. And I had moved up my flashlight closer, which oddly completely disappeared. Like I never found my flashlight. I moved it closer to me. I think I actually put it under my pillow. That's what I did, because it was on my nightstand, and I put it on under my pillow, went to bed, and about an hour later, because I had been so sleepy, I was out to dinner. I got to the restaurant with my friend, and next thing I know, I was falling asleep in they served us our chips and salsa, and boom, I was falling asleep at the table. And I said, I got to go home. And my friend's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I don't know. But she actually gave me her sweats, and we layered clothes on me. And she's like, maybe you're coming down with something. I don't know. I just felt like this. I had to get home, and I could barely, and I was being squeezed. And then I went to sleep. I woke up 1 hour before the earthquake, shut off the wall heater that I had, the gas wall heater, and moved the flashlight closer to me.
Right.
And then when the earthquake hit, I couldn't even find, first thing I went was for the flashlight under my pillow. Couldn't find, and I never found that flashlight. That's one of the weirder things in that earthquake. It just like vanished. So, but I think that's all to prepare me. And also, since that point, it's raised a new awareness on how I get information too.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, because we all get new information. It comes and goes, but it comes in spurts sometimes, and
Yes.
And it comes in ways that you're going to be able to pick up on it, like these little signs, like these little triggers. Absolutely. And it only needs to happen once or twice, and you go, that's what it is right there. So
yes. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's pretty quick. You get that confirmation pretty quick. Sometimes it might take days, weeks, months, and going, oh, there it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because you can connect the two energy of the warning and the event.
Hi, I'm Daniel Jackson of Spirit Medium Daniel. Are you unsure of the path your life is taking? Do you need spiritual advice? Come book a reading with me, and I will put your mind at ease and your worries to rest. www.spiritmediumdaniel.com. Crazy stuff, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, They, they used to say, God works in mysterious ways, but so does spirit. They have their way of finding something that they know we will pick up on very quickly.
Yes. And that's what I hope your listeners understand is if you have certain experiences, don't look for validation
Right. Just go with it.
because those may be exclusively unique that
Right. To you.
only you understand,
Yeah. Yeah.
you'll get.
Whenever I talk to people or they come to me and ask me questions about that, other people who are experiencing this new medium type shit
Mhm.
thing, I always tell them that, what happens for me isn't going to happen necessarily for you. You're going to get, answers the way that works for you, not necessarily, because they always ask, well, how does it work for you? What worked for me may not work for you. That's all, because that's what I'm susceptible to. That's all.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And yeah, different strokes for different folks.
Yeah. I love that TV show, Different Strokes. It was awesome.
Oh, I know. Those were all golden. I love all those shows. Very sad though for that, a lot of that cast though.
I know, right? Yeah, they didn't exactly fare well. That
No,
just goes to show you can make a lot of money in that business, and it doesn't mean anything.
right.
Yeah.
And with, as I worked with studios when we had our antique business in LA, and we had celebrity clientele, and a lot of them were not happy people.
No.
Um, yes, they were not. Some of them like me. I think they liked my energy. They used to come in and I would treat them like regular folks, and they really liked it.
Yeah, sure. They need that. Well, they are regular folk. They just.
They are regular
Yeah.
folks. But the truth about the whole Hollywood industry is you're owned,
Yeah.
and you don't have as much money and fanfare. You don't own your own life in that
No.
business.
No.
So, and I think they like just the regular, there's a feeling they want to be regular folk again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely. That's why a lot of them get out of it. They're in it for a little while and get it. Like Gene Hackman, he was an
Yes.
actor forever, and then all of a sudden he just quit because he
Mhm.
wanted to go back to being regular.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So tell me the story. You've told me the story before, but I want my listeners to hear it. So tell me the story of when you moved to New Mexico, but before you moved, you were supposed to take a 12-hour trip, and then it took forever to get there. And then when you got there, you knew the energy within the house was not exactly what you thought it was going to be.
Exactly. Yes. My whole New Mexico move was pretty bizarre. Everything seemed to be, I mean, I wouldn't say everything, but just there was already some warning signs to be prepared that I think I either just brushed them off or didn't pay attention. But the trip was very strange. There was already an energy building up. I know the night before I went to clear out my PO box, and when I went back into the car, I heard the doors lock, and I didn't have my hand on the keys. So when I went to go check the door, it had locked me in. And then it gets even more stranger. The car alarm starts going off. Crazy, and I'm like, what is going on? Well, I happened to catch the glimpse in my rear view mirror, and there is my nephew laughing his ass off. Now, he had died just a few months before. So I think he was showing me, look what I can do now that I'm deceased, but I can have some fun. So for those who think your deceased folks are not having a good time, just remember my nephew's story, having a good old time, screwing with his auntie. Okay.
Yeah, they can do it. They can do it.
So then we take off, and this particular time, New Mexico had its worst snowstorm in 100 years. And we were trying to catch our window before the next big snowstorm came in.
Sure.
And everything seemed to be okay. The weather report said that the storm had moved north of us. And when we left, it was chilly, but crystal clear. We were confident we were gonna do our 12 hours, no problem. But no sooner we hit Flagstaff, the storm, to everyone's surprise, including the Weather Service, decided to have a mind of its own and dropped right on top of us. So we were trapped in Flagstaff for the next 7 days. And then I had this weird, bizarre illness that seemed to, I don't know if it was stress, but personally, I think it was already this weird energy building.
Do you think the energy that was coming up on you like that, do you think that this is their way of telling you, we know that you're showing up?
Yes, because at the end of the 7 days, we finally got, because how we got trapped in between me being sick and we got trapped in that blizzard. So it was a full-on blizzard in Flagstaff. So that's why we had to hunker down for that. And our 12-hour trip turned into a 7-day nightmare, really. So between the blizzard, me being sick, and our poor animals being traumatized, that was the first time that they had to be away. We had 5 cats and 3 dogs. So that was quite and they were never had been away from it. And we had to house them in the Flagstaff vet office because they were the only ones who did the kennel, and we took up their entire facility.
Right. Wow.
And only they had to even utilize one of their exam rooms for all of our cats, because they were only really prepared for dogs and not cats. So they made do. Thank you, Flagstaff vets.
Yeah, no, I get it. When we just moved across to America here, yeah,
I'm sure.
finding
Yes.
a hotel that would take all of our pets
Yeah.
was crazy.
Yep. Yeah. And then they want to charge you like $100 per animal too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we walked into one place and he said, how many? I said, well, we have cats. Well, how many do you have? We have 10. No. 10, 3, okay. 10, not okay. I was like,
Exactly.
okay. So we left.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know we ran into that too. And especially since we hadn't really, I mean, I had done a brief search online for the ones that said pet friendly, but when we actually showed up with pets, they were like, no. I said, your website says you do.
Yeah.
So, but we managed.
Yeah.
We managed. So finally, on the 7th day, it's clear, sunny. I can feel like a relief of energy off me. We're heading for New Mexico, and I see the New Mexican sign where it says, you are now entering New Mexico. Well, as soon as I crossed that particular sign, I had a very bizarre experience. And I write about this in the Mastering the Paradox, where all of a sudden it felt like my blood was now filled with like effervescence, like soda just coming through my veins. And I heard this chorus of voices, just thousands of voices, all synchronized, saying, we've been expecting you.
Yeah. Wonderful, right?
Yes. So I'm thinking all's good. We're now on the right path. And then we get to the house, and my husband trusted me. He never had seen the house. So basically he says, I trust your opinion. And when he got there, he was like, oh my gosh, this is better than any pictures you brought back. And we thought it was going to be just smooth sailing and we're good. And I got the voices going, we've been expecting you. And then it goes nutsy. The first day in the house, I feel like something is watching me. It just felt, and it was concentrated in the master bedroom, bathroom. So that was something within with the next like 24 to 48 hours. I kept feeling it. It continued for a couple of years. But the second day in the house, I saw a spirit literally walk past me. I was in the laundry room. So he came from the kitchen, walked right past me through the dryer and went into the wall.
So did you say anything, or did you just do one of these?
That's it right there, Daniel. That is exactly.
That's what I do all the
was
time.
like, wow.
That's what I do all the time.
Yeah. I mean, he seemed harmless, and I thought, well, maybe he's the watcher. But then as we come in the house, there's a little more strangeness. I have doors trying to slam in my face. I'll walk by the kitchen cabinet and the cabinet comes and slaps me in the face. You know, again, your mind, what you're seeing versus what you're experiencing, there's a disconnect.
Right.
So you're still trying to put some natural cause into, you know, what's going on. What is it?
Got to be some type of explanation, right?
Right. So, and that's what you should do. I mean, you shouldn't anticipate everything's dropped off, you know, like drafted up or, you know, blamed on supernatural. You should always look for a natural explanation. So you don't always, just to keep yourself in check and balance, because if you start looking and imagining everything supernatural, that may not be the case.
Right.
But then there was then there is one experience that would put that all to rest, where I realized that the door slamming, because you're thinking, well, maybe it's wind, you know, maybe the hinge on the door is going out, right? But there's one incident in particular that put that doubt to complete rest. So I was cooking dinner in the kitchen, and just an average day, wasn't having any visions. I didn't feel anything creepy. I happened to be slicing up, I think, some carrots. I put the knife down on the side of the board to scoop up the carrots to throw them in the pot. But then that knife started to bounce.
Okay.
It started to bounce all by itself. Again, I'm not caring because whatever.
Right.
It's not a problem. If you want to play with my knife, go ahead. I don't really care. So, but in a few seconds, that would all change because it was going to do something that got me to care. So the knife continued to bounce. It bounced itself to the edge of the cutting board. And I'm thinking, okay, you know, I'm moving on to some other thing now. I'm still watching it. And there it bounced itself to the edge of the counter. It bounced on the floor, landed itself on the floor. And I go, that's kind of interesting. It moved from the cutting board to the floor. But then 100% doubt moved. That stupid knife came up like an invisible hand was holding it, and it nicked my ankle. And then the knife just dropped again. I still didn't believe it. Because again, you have that whatever cognitive dissonance that you can't reconcile it. It wasn't until the blood was dripping down my ankle that it got extremely real.
Right. Yeah.
And that's when I said, oh no, you don't.
Yeah.
So I grabbed some lids, because I had seen some episode on Tibetan monks, like really not the ones that are usually exploited by the West, but never see civilizations. And they use symbols to keep their evil spirits away.
Okay.
So I used my lids on my pots and I went through the house cursing as the blood's dripping down my foot.
Yeah, I was
But
going to say,
that was-
did you tend to your foot yet, or no, you just let it go?
Oh, I let it bleed because I needed evidence, right?
Yeah.
Because even though this had happened to me, I says, I'm going to deal with the problem, then I'll deal with what that is. Because I says, again, your mind still struggles to understand what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I went, said my curse words, cursed them out with my symbol, my makeshift symbols. And then I tended to, and it had a little, it was probably about a 1/4 inch nick right under my ankle bone.
Now, you think, I mean, we struggle with these types of things that go on because we've been taught our entire lives not to believe in this type of stuff.
Right.
We've been taught that this stuff doesn't happen, can't happen.
Right.
Like you said earlier, if you're talking to spirit or anything, you must be talking to demons and devils and
Right.
all that stuff. But it could absolutely be something else. But we're taught that there is no other else.
Right. Yeah. And also too, I mean, I think one of the biggest shockers that I've got out of it, I mean, I've always been told, you know, the spirit world can't hurt you. Spirit world can't hurt you. Well, now I have an experience
Right.
that contradicts that. And I think for the most part, they probably don't. But I have a unique experience that contradicts even certain venues in the acceptable mindset that would say, no, that couldn't have happened, but it did.
Well, I mean, they say, the spirit world can't hurt you, but so like in the physical world, anyone could hurt you if they wanted to. There's
Right.
what, 7 billion people. There's somebody out there who wants to either hurt you or
Right.
has those types of thoughts. So why wouldn't a spirit have that as well too? If it's a spirit of someone who was a horrible person and didn't cross over and stayed here,
Right.
they're still staying horrible. So, and they just, hey, here's somebody I can pick on. I'll try this one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think they understand now that they picked on the wrong person. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I agree with that statement.
yes. Yes. Well, here's the thing. We bought this house in the big major upswing of the market before the bubble burst.
Right.
And these people had the house sold. They were 30,000 below
Wow.
the market. And I honestly think, and it had been on the house 5 days. I mean, that type of market was nutsy. They were, just as big in the bidding frenzy. Why this house stayed on the market 5 days and nobody at 30,000 below. But I walk in, I'm like, oh, this is the perfect. I mean, it was, if we were planning to remodel our LA house with this design. So we imagine our surprise. We walk in and it has the skylights, it has the office out right off the door. It has the big backyard because we were thinking about actually bringing my elderly father to live in. So it had it's over 1/3 of an acre.
Wow.
We were gonna bring his dogs, our dogs, right? It was gonna fill up this house with with animals.
With everyone.
Yes, with everyone. It had enough guest rooms, and that's something our little 900 square foot LA ranch house
Was not
with
gonna do.
a 1/13 of an acre. I mean, we had a built-in pool that took up most of that 0.13 acre that we lived in.
Wow.
Mainly concrete. So this was kind of our dream house. It had views of the mountains, views of the volcanoes, a lot of land to accommodate our family, our needs and my dad's needs for his dogs. But it was weird that it just seemed that it worked out. And I have a feeling that this house was meant for me. I mean, it just felt that way. But I do suspect that the family who lived in here was forced out by what was attacking me. Because
absolutely.
Yes, I suspected that. I'm glad you confirmed that. The family, I had met the wife, and a year after we had been in this house, she came back with the boys. Now, her husband was an engineer. He was lecturing at the University in New Mexico. So while I was out running some errands, she showed up and with the boys, and she wanted to see the house, not check on us. She wanted to visit the house. But the conversation she had with my husband wanted to see, she asked a little bit like, how you guys doing in the house, right? In the house.
Is it still going on? Yeah.
Right. So I happened to catch her before she left, and we had this conversation in the backyard, which was kind of interesting because she had told the sellers that after 9 years of living in here that they had to leave. They were heartbroken, but they had a mother-in-law or mother who was terminally ill, and they had to go tend to her. And that's why they had to leave. So my thing, being that I'm tend to be empathic and want to be sympathetic, first thing I said was, oh my gosh, how's your mother? Was it your mother-in-law? And she was like, I'm sorry. I says, didn't you have to leave because of the, the terminal cancer? And that's why. And all of a sudden you get one of these,
oh yeah, the light just went on.
Yeah. Yeah, she's fine. And that was my radar to go, yeah, it wasn't because of this family member.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, the more you lie, the more you have to remember. And my memory sucks. So yeah, you got to try to figure out, oh, did I tell a story about that? Oh,
yeah.
No.
Well, you know what's crazy is in New Mexico, you may actually get a little bit more for a haunted house. If she would have presented me, well, we're leaving because the place is kind of woo, that wouldn't have been a deal breaker for me.
Nowadays, here, me either, but maybe 10 years ago, probably. But yeah.
There's actually, as you know, I do real estate too on the side, part-time. And there's actually a search in the real estate database for haunted houses.
So people are actually looking for them.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, if you don't want to go to an amusement park and you'd rather just stay in your own home and get some, sure.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, ours was a bit of a haunted house.
Yeah.
Like the scary haunted house, but it did all change when
you can't be picky, Victoria.
I know. Yeah, it was like the house of horrors there for a while, but that's okay because again, they decided to pick on the wrong occupants, and one of those fine little boogers tried to pull the cabinet swinging open and smacking my husband in the face because he had heard these stories, right? He had never, and he thought, frankly, he's like, maybe you should go talk to somebody.
Maybe you need to take a pill, babe.
Exactly. So I'm not going to lie about that. He was like, I think you might need some therapy or something because I'm not experiencing what you are. Until that one little fateful day when and it's always that one cabinet for some reason. It's this one particular cabinet door, and he went for his coffee cup, and sure enough, so
cracked him one.
Yeah, and he went through the house. By the way, no pot lids like I did. It just took his ranting mouth, and then all of a sudden it got very quiet. So,
yeah, same way with me in the very beginning when I was first finding out about this about me. I had all this stuff happen to me, and then my wife came home from her vacation and she told me about her adventures, and I told her about all my crazy adventures, and she thought the same thing. Maybe I was, I was diabetic. I'm diabetic, so maybe it was my medication. It was some type of diabetic psychosis or whatever. But 3 days after that, she started experiencing the same stuff, and she was like, oh, maybe there is something to this. So, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, it's like with anything. People, you can see somebody walking down the street and they could be limping or something, and you look at them and you go, And oh, are you in pain? Well, yeah, I'm all screwed up. I think you're faking. People don't realize
Mm,
anything until it happens to them.
exactly.
Pain, anything, any of these types of situations. When it happens to them, then they go, oh, and then a light comes on. But they never think otherwise.
Yes. Yes. Well, since I guess I've actually, for the last 20 some years, I've kind of kept that on a down low. Very few people knew about my abilities because of that. But when I mainly, not so much the first book, because the first book has the buddings of that. And mainly talk about the premonitions of, like the Northridge earthquake, the TWA crash, another plane crash that happened in Queens. I saw that very vividly. I actually was able to see the number on the aircraft, and that turned out, in my dream, it was the tail number, but actually it turned out to be the flight number. Um,
And
yeah,
what do you, and you have to say to yourself, what can I do with this information? I mean, you can't
exactly.
just call up an airline and say, hey, your plane's going to crash, because then they're going to go, oh, terrorist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, when I was in Italy, I saw the TWA 800 crash. And I don't know if everybody's familiar about some of the controversy saying that, they saw a missile take that plane
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
I saw a missile take that plane down 4 weeks before that plane crashed. And it was somebody from our government with a rocket launcher on one of those islands off of Martha's Vineyards. Take it down. And that shook me. That was the first time where, I didn't really know what I saw, because I kept going, why is one of our people shooting down an airline with a freaking rocket launcher? What the hell is that about? And I remember waking up, it was around 3 o'clock in the morning, Italy time. But the intensity of that dream, I was hyperventilating, because that was the first time where I really felt like I need to tell somebody about that. But I'm in Italy. I don't know who the heck am I going to call.
Right.
I think I called my dad, and he's like, I don't know, if you feel you got to go call somebody. I'm like, but I'm in Italy. Who the heck, what is my credibility? And again, you have to think about what do you do with this information? And then again, what are the repercussions of, gee, how do you know this information ahead of time? So you're kind of conflicted, something like that, especially airline premonitions.
Yeah.
You go from trying to come from a place of, I want to prepare, I want to help people, I want to warn people, to, I could be a suspect.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think a lot of forensic psychics have gone through that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So you have,
I,
mhm.
I did a show where somebody called in and asked me about that. And they said, some girl who went missing, do you do that? I said, no, I don't do that. Well, why not? Because if you get anything a little bit out of whack or anything, then they're coming to you, and then you're the one who's under the spotlight. Then and
Yes.
they have the microscope on top of you. And I said, I don't want. I know these things. And he said, well, that's horrible. I said, well, it doesn't make a difference if I solve this one. It's going to happen again. Well, maybe if you do solve one, maybe that'll keep from somebody. I said, no, that doesn't
Mhm.
happen. People are still going to continue to murder people. And somebody did. Another person went missing like 2 weeks later. And then he came back
Right.
and said, yeah, you're right. I said, yeah, I know. But why do you want to put yourself in the middle of that? Me, I can help people in other ways,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's one of the, I guess, frustrations is,
Yeah.
what do you do with this information? I think one of my weirdest premonitions there, where I saw, actually, I had the premonition for Ennis Cosby. I had seen the scene before he was murdered. through the eyes of the killer.
Right.
I mean, it was kind of like, I felt like I was in the eyes of Laura Mars. You know, you're now through the point of view of the killer.
Yeah.
And
You're
I saw the
conscious.
car break
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
I saw his girlfriend with or whoever she was, never really established, with the fur coat. Both him, Ennis Cosby, and the gal that he was with, both knew the guy because they were very friendly. And I can see myself going through the eyes of the killer.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? I have that a lot too.
Mhm.
I guess I don't know if that's called remote viewing or whatever it is, but yeah, my consciousness, I know it's in the, like, I sometimes have messages come through, or that comes through. I'm sitting on the couch somewhere in somebody's house watching TV,
Mhm.
and then I see the person get up, and I'm like, why? Okay, so I'm asking them, is my consciousness in his eyes, and I'm seeing all this, and I get yes answers, and I'm like, why
Right.
am I sitting on someone's couch watching TV, watching cartoons, let alone TV? You know, I'm like,
Yeah.
makes sense.
I mean, that was probably one of the more bizarrest premonitions, to actually
Sure.
see it through the eyes. And I was again, my small circle, and I says, Ennis Cosby's killer is somebody he knows. They know, because I'll tell you, most crimes in LA, they don't just randomly happen. There's some sort of connection.
Yeah.
That's just a fact. But the
Stay tuned for part 2 of Leap Into My Story. To reach Victoria, please visit her website at www.leapintoyourstory.com. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time on Beyond the Veil with Daniel Jackson.